Hello YouTube world, this is Brian again from Los Hills Homestead. I'm at a friend's place. I had an issue with my Caeb Baler. Make a long story short, hay was getting fed into it, and a big clump of hay went in when the chamber is almost full, the bale is almost complete. And a big clump of hay went in and basically stopped it and caused the shear pin to shear off. And in the process, the PTO shaft ended up getting bent. The things to design, the baler is designed where the PTO shaft connects to the gearbox that drives the rollers in the chamber. It's designed to stay in line. There's supposed to be a part of the shaft coming out of the gearbox. It's supposed to recess into the coupler on the PTO shaft side. Well, there ain't much that sticks out on mine. I don't know if that's all it's supposed to stick out is a little bit, but the issue was the gearbox sits a little crooked, so it ain't true. I'll show you a picture of it, or I'll hold the camera up there where you can see. I got the new shaft, put it in there, and there's a gap where the two couplers are supposed to mate up. They're supposed to mate up flat against one another. Well, there's a gap on the one side, so that tells me that gearbox is sitting a little crooked. So, still under warranty. I got the shaft. It didn't cost me anything. They mailed it to me. I got mailed the bent one back, so I'll have a little cost in shipping, I guess, because they didn't give me a return label to put on there to send to FedEx or anything, so I'll have to pay for that. But anyways, I got to take that gearbox loose because it ain't lining up. I talked to the dealer, and he said to take that gearbox loose and take the 4 bolts that hold the outer part of the PTO shaft, the housing part that actually holds the shaft and the bearing and stuff. Take them loose and see if I can get it aligned. Well, it ain't off much. I think actually if the gearbox can rotate, they'll line up flush with each other where I can put my shear pin, which is just virtually a bolt. But anyways, I think I'd taken them loose to see if it'd rotate. Well, it wouldn't, because the holes they have going through the plate that actually hold the gearbox in place are the exact size of the bolt. The bolts just slip through, so there ain't no play for it to be able to shift a little bit. So I think I'm gonna have to do is take the bolts out, see if I can get it lined up like it should be. But I'm possibly gonna have to ream them holes out in that mounting plate just a little bit to where I can put the bolts back in and tighten it up. I'm hoping this works. I'll show you the gap. I'll show you the gap in the coupler where you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when you see it, I guess. As you can see, there's a gap in between those. This is what I call the coupler. It should be a Lovejoy coupler, not these 2 plates or discs, but that's what it looks like. The shaft just barely sticks out, and I was told that that's to keep it aligned. So if that bolt that goes through this hole right here, and there's one on the other side, right? Well, it's over down below, so it's rotated like that, but that gap's on this side. And on the other side, I'll take you around. And down here on the bottom, see, it's tight up against there, but the gap starts getting wider as it goes around here, and then narrow as it gets down towards the bottom, so it's tight against here. I rotated this to see if the gap moved, if the gap was over here, but it's always on this side, so I know that these two aren't bent, that the shaft and the shaft of the gearbox are sitting a little crooked. They ain't straight with one another. So I'm going to loosen these bolts down here on the bottom of this gearbox and see if I can't rotate that just this way a little bit, because this will move left and right. So I'll move it this way a little bit and see if I can't get that gap to be, everything to be straight with one another. Okay, I got done doing what I was going to do on this baler, or what I felt I needed to do. Okay, what I done is I ended up loosening up the 4 bolts that hold the gearbox onto this mounting plate. I'll turn the camera around so you can see it. There's 4 bolts down here that hold this gearbox onto this plate. What I done is I took them bolts out, and as soon as I done that, this gearbox shifted forward slightly this way, which made them line up flush with one another like they are now. And I put the shear off pin or the bolt in there, tightened it up, and then I looked down underneath. The gearbox was touching the mounting plate here, but there was a gap in between the gearbox and the mounting plate back here. So actually this was sitting upward. When it was actually bolted down originally, it was sitting upward just slightly and cocked that way. So I had to, when I loosened it up, of course it come back this direction, and when I was able to put these couplers together, it actually tilted that down, the gearbox down, lined up those 2 shafts. So I had to put spacers in between the gearbox and the mounting plate, and then put the bolts back through. Now it sits level. All I gotta do is get my tractor hooked up to this, and it should run good. I've turned it by hand. Everything seems to be okay. Looks like that shaft's turning true and everything. I shouldn't have any issues with it. I hope this helped you guys out if you end up having buying one of these and never have issues of that shear pin getting sheared off and having the issues I had. The shaft originally got bent. When it come loose, this shaft coming out of this gearbox is supposed to recess into this side just a little bit. It keeps it aligned if that shear pin ever does shear off, but it only sticks out probably less than 1/16 of an inch. I mean, it barely sticks out, just enough that it'll hold it up there, but when your PTO is running it don't hold it in place, and enough play that it end up separating these 2. They spun around or whatever and end up bending the shaft. So I had to get a new shaft, but it was under warranty. So I suppose I'll call this the end of the video. Hope this helped you out. Thanks.